Friends, I want to share with you the story of a hospital that captures the story of a people. In 1843, the Jewish community in Hamburg built a hospital, a Jewish hospital. It was called the Israelische Krankenhaus of Hamburg, and it was donated by a well-known Jewish banker in the city named Solomon Heine. Now, you may not know the name Solomon Heine, but you probably have heard the name of his nephew, definitely if you're from Germany, Heinrich Heine. And Heinrich, or Heinrich, as they would say in Germany, was a poet, a young Jewish German poet who was extraordinarily assimilated. He saw the future of the Jewish people as Germans, and he was very critical of his own background. And he was asked to read a poem at the reception his uncle made for opening this new Jewish hospital. And Heinrich Heine, who didn't understand why Jews should have anything distinct to themselves, got up there and read a poem. And in this poem, he shocked the audience. Can you imagine? The audience comes to the reception at the opening of a Jewish hospital, and he shocks the audience with a very, very cynical poem about the Jewish people. And he writes that we're having a hospital here for being Jewish, and that sometimes being Jewish is like a disease, and how embarrassing it is to be Jewish. And just imagine, first of all, the fact that a young Jew would say such a thing. Second of all, that it's at the reception of the hospital built by his uncle. And third, that he says this in front of a Jewish audience at a Jewish event. Really shocking and disturbing, and this poem made its shockwaves through the Jewish community, who were devastated and embarrassed by Heinrich Heine, who really was an assimilated Jew who was embarrassed of his Judaism. This was in 1843. Fast forward another 98 years, the year's 1941, and the Jewish community of Hamburg is long into the Nazi regime. They've suffered persecution, segregation, financial oppression. They cannot work in their professions. They can't go to any schools. Many have already been deported to Dachau, the concentration camp, and there's still a handful left there. And they're led by Rabbi Joseph Karlbach. Rabbi Dr. Joseph Karlbach, a famous German Jewish rabbinic family, is there in 1941, and he tells the people of the city, he says, listen, usually we would celebrate a very big milestone in the life of our community. And that is that in 2 years from now, we'll have 100 years of the Jewish hospital in Hamburg. But unfortunately, I don't know that we're going to make it to that time. I don't know if we will be alive. I don't know if we'll exist as a community or as individuals in another 2 years from now. And he tells them, let's go and do something that will mark this centennial celebration, would have been, even though it's 2 years early. And so in 1941, rather than in 1943, the Jewish community of Hamburg gathers outside of this hospital, the Israelische Krankenhaus in Hamburg, and Rabbi Karlbach reads a poem. And the poem speaks about how being Jewish is something to be proud of, and being Jewish is a gift. And being Jewish means that we care for others and look out for others, and that we build hospitals and we're compassionate. And the contrast could not be any stronger, because if you look at what was happening on the streets, the Nazis marching, the oppression of people, the sending people to the death camps, the contrast could not be greater. A nation that values life, a nation that values healing, versus a nation that was viciously engaged in the mass murder of many, many millions, and a war that ended up claiming the lives of more than 3% of the world population. And he reads this poem and he speaks about how being Jewish is the greatest pride he can have, and how beautiful it is to be a Jew who loves humanity and cares for humanity, and whose values include building a hospital. And indeed, a year or two later, most of the Jews who were there did not survive. Most of the Jews who were at Hamburg at this centennial celebration, or not celebration, more of a marking the event, did not survive. You would think that the story ends there. Today, in Hamburg, there's the Joseph Karlbach School, which has a pre-K through 12th grade school that inspires Jewish life when Jews have returned to many of those communities, many Jews from the Soviet Union, the former Soviet Union, and it comes to show you the power of hope, the power of faith, and the power of staying proud no matter what is happening, no matter what's going on, keeping our heads up, even as those Jews did in Hamburg in 1941. And as that inspired people even after the greatest horror in the history of our people. And so the words of Heinrich Heine were judged by two things. First of all, the actions of the Germans during the Holocaust. He, Heinrich Heine, who was so embarrassed of his Judaism and so proud of being German, really didn't get to see the horrors that the German people perpetrated. And at the same time, also, you saw that 98 years later, his poem had a rebuttal. And the rebuttal was that being Jewish is nothing to be ashamed of. To the contrary, being Jewish should be a great source of pride and faith and belief in a better future. And may we take those lessons, the lessons of hope, inspiration, and compassion for others, and implement them in our lives, living as proud Jews. Thank you so much.